Welcome, friends. Sending you all love and light. Some people watching this video may consider the astrology cellular salt connection craziness, foolishness, pseudoscience. But before dismissing such a possibility, let's consider for a moment the subtle forces that are known to work on the body. It's quite well established that we're consistently being affected by electromagnetic rays from the moon, as well as the sun and the stars. These rays are affecting every living thing on the planet, including our oceans and the tides, the weather, growth cycles. Astrology is based on the premise that you and I, we're the center of our own personal universe. The pineal gland is composed of sand plus a cement, an ointment, a smear, found in a large quantity in the spinal cord, also to some extent in all parts of the body. But when the cement is wasted, as the prodigal son wasted his substance in riotous living, there becomes a deficiency of the precious oil. The pineal gland becomes brittle and does not vibrate at the rate that vitalizes the blood and the tissue, and the house or the Beth or your body begins to fail. In the common slang of the hour, it is said, he lacks the sand or grit. Mineral salts of the blood were called sand or salt by the Hebrews. The cell salts that are found in the pineal gland are chiefly potassium phosphate, the base of the gray matter of the brain, but all of the 12 organic salts are represented. In Revelation, the pineal gland the white stone. In biochemistry, the phosphate of potassium is given as the birth salt of Aries people. Those who build their house upon a rock are they who conserve the substance that unites with the sand, the cell salts, and thus form the rock upon which a body or church may be built, so that it will be free from sin, i.e. missing the mark, and sickness. Matthew 16:18, and I said also unto thee, that thou art Peter, rock, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Inez Perry's extensive work in the connections between astrology and body chemistry led to a more detailed view on pregnancy, birth, and mineral balance. She came to conclude that the fetus receives tissue salts during the gestation period, but is deficient in the salt, which corresponds with the months when the unborn child was not in the womb. Now I understand the scripture, ye were born into sin. We've sinned or missed the mark in completing the zodiacal circle, leaving us deficient or have missed the mark in completeness or sinned. This is the astro, chemico, physiological, and chromatic chart that was written by Inez Perry, and I'm going to demonstrate how you can figure out which salts you're deficient in. All right, this is a chart that is for full-term births, but you were conceived and born exactly right, cusp to cusp. The diagram shows if you were born on December 20, if you were conceived March 21st and then born December 21st, exactly, then you only need 3 of the salts. You've completed your Sagittarius. You've completed your Sagittarius right here. You were born right here, right on the cusp, right before you get into Capricorn. So you're deficient in Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Normally people do not know when their mother conceived. And I don't know the statistics, but I really feel like a very small percentage of people only need 3 of them. Now this chart is for a full-term child, mid-cusp to mid-cusp. Or I would suggest that if you don't know your conception date, that you should just follow this. I really feel like this is what the majority of people are going to fall into. And as you can see on this chart, we'll say that you only got half of your Sagittarius in because you were born. Now, I don't even care if it was like 3 days before or 3, you know, if it was really close, it doesn't matter. You still have to, you still have to use this salt. So I really feel like this is where a lot of us fall in, is somewhere in between a sign and not exactly on when it switches over to the next sign. And like I said, if you don't know your conception date, because most people don't, maybe people now these days do that, but that wasn't a thing back in the day. So this is what I'm going to say goes for most people, okay? This chart shows that if you only got half of your Sagittarius, then you're going to need to implement Sagittarius and Capricorn and Aquarius and Pisces. All right, and now this chart is, well, it's implemented for 2 months. Okay, this is a premature so that you can see what that looks like. And it's the same thing. If you were born mid-Libra, then you have to do your Libra and Scorpio and Sagittarius and Capricorn and Aquarius, and then finally Pisces. But if you weren't born 2 months premature, then you would just be, you just move it down 1 less salt. This video is going to be just a little bit lengthy, but I'm doing it because I'm trying to be as thorough as I possibly can, and so that I include everyone's, the whole zodiacal wheel in there, so that nobody misses out. Hey, can you take a second and help support the channel? Give it a thumbs up, like, share with your own friends and family. Subscribe if you haven't. Click the bell so you get notifications. But the channel's not monetized, so that'll help to get the algorithm picked up, and I thoroughly appreciate it. From the Biochemic Systems of Medicine by George Washington Carey, published in 1897. This will be the 12 zodiacal cellular salts, their diseases and remedies. I can't remember if I said that I'll have this listed below with a PDF link, but I will. Now, to make this a little bit easier for everyone, because the book skips around, it doesn't go like the zodiac wheel does. This one is Calcarea fluorica, or calcium fluoride, which is for Cancer. You'll notice on the left of the screen the crab signifying Cancer, and then on the right of your screen Leo, Virgo, and Libra. I'll do that for each one of the 12 sections that I'm going to read from so that everybody can keep track. Whatever your birth sign is will be on the left, and you're following 3 salts that, in my opinion, not too many people born on the cusp, so you're following 3 salts will be on the right. Cancer, calcium fluoride. To know a certain inorganic cell salt is indicated by certain symptoms is one thing, but to know the process by which it works to accomplish certain results is quite another thing. The fluoride of lime is found in the enamel of teeth, connective tissue, and the elastic fiber of all muscular tissue. A lack of elastic fiber in muscular tissue causes falling of the womb, varicose veins, and a general sagging down feeling. Swelling of stony hardness are due to a lack of the salt, the substance that causes the hard accumulation being elastic fiber or lime. When a deficiency in this lime salt, and consequently a deficiency of elastic fiber, occurs in connective tissues between the cerebrum, my mouth is not working, the cerebrum and the cerebellum, an abnormal process of thought occurs, causing groundless fears of financial ruin. I just want to sidetrack here for a moment. I'm a Cancer, and I didn't know, I knew that in your horoscopes they'll say that, yeah, Cancers are like that, but I didn't think that this guy from 1897 was going to say that it was in correlation to this lack of the salt. It's ironic. I found just about all of my ailments or dis-eases that I've been diagnosed with, they fall right in line with this book. Lupus is a Cancer thing, lack of the fluoride of lime, but abnormal process of thought occurs causing groundless fears of financial ruin. That is so super crazy, because my whole life, I mean, I don't have money. I never have, so I don't know if it's groundless or not, but wow, that is the fear of not being stable, not being able to provide for yourself. It's just crazy how in depth and well, at least with me and the things that I've been diagnosed with that correlate with this book. It amazes me. Okay, no more me sidebarring, at least I don't think so. But the student of biochemistry will doubtless wish to understand where elastic fiber, of which I speak, comes from, as he will, of course, see that the fluoride of lime molecules themselves are not elastic fiber. My opinion is that the lime salt in question unites with albumin and forms or creates elastic fiber. Of course, other organic substances and oxygen play a part in its formation, but the fluoride of lime molecules and pure albumin are the chief factors. The wonders I have wrought with this tissue cell salt in cases of hard lump in the female breast, or in swelling of stony hardness, and other cases where a deficiency is indicated, would not be believed by many practitioners without personal observation or more proof than a mere statement by a biochemist enthusiast. I trust I may be able to throw some light on the action of this wonderful remedy, and also the manner in which it operates. I have had the best results with the highest potencies from the 6th up. Now what he's talking about is he made his own, because he was a biochemist, so he made his own. I do not recommend, condone, or advocate going and buying cellular salts online. I really think it's a big shim-sham flim-flam, and as with everything, I think that you should really go a la natural. Get all of your things from fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, your grains, herbs. You can do it that way. I don't agree with any of that. So that's why you see that there's some foods listed at the bottom, or at least there should be. I hope that there are foods correlating with the fluoride of lime so that you can kick it back up. For time purposes, the diseases that you're going to, and ailments you're going to see are going to go sometimes quite fast. I did it for time purposes. You can go ahead and just pause it so that you can read. So I'm going to do that through all of them so the video isn't quite so lengthy. Calcarea phosphorica, or phosphate of lime, calcium phosphate. Capricorn, if you're a Capricorn sun sign, this is your first salt. And to the right, you'll see the 3 other astrological signs. You need those salts as well. Phosphate of lime is destined to play a prominent part in the treatment of the sick when its range is fully understood by medical practitioners. This salt works with albumin, carries it to the bone tissue or to any part of the body where it may be needed. It uses albumin as a cement to build up the bone structure. Bone is 57% phosphate of lime, the remainder gelatin and albuminous, gluey substance, carbonate of soda, magnesium phosphate, and sodium chloride. Without the lime phosphate, no bone can be made. When for any reason the molecules of this salt fall below the proper standard in the blood, some disturbance in life's processes occur. It may be that bone cells are not rebuilt as fast as they die. In such cases, the deficiency exists for a great length of time. A condition of anemia prevails, for the bone is the basis and the foundation stone of the organism. Should the albumin not having a sufficient quantity of the lime phosphate to properly take care of it become a disturbing element and be thrown off by the kidney route, the wise men call it Bright's disease. If through the nasal passages, the condition is named catarrh. If by the lungs a cough is produced, if the albumin reaches skin, pimples, eruptions, freckles, a condition of eczema, or perchance sores, if the amount at any given point be large, it is sometimes called scrofula. But just what relation the word scrofula has to a running sore is hard to tell, unless it is the fact that the ancients thought that those who ate pork were more liable to be thus afflicted. The word is from scrofa, a sow. Calcium phosphate is found in the gastric juice, and a lack of the proper balance is frequently the cause of indigestion. Conditions called rheumatism are sometimes due to a deficiency of the cell salt. It's well known to biochemists that a proper balance of sodium phosphate is required to prevent an acid condition from prevailing, and under certain conditions, when calcium phosphate, for any reason, is not present in proper quantities, the affinities draw upon sodium phosphate in an endeavor to supply the lack and thus a deficiency in the alkaline salts ensure, which allows an acid condition to prevail, i.e. rheumatism. Calcium phosphate is an auxiliary to the therapeutical effects of magnesium phosphate, as it more nearly resembles that salt than any other. When magnesium phosphate is clearly indicated and does not restore the normal condition in a reasonable length of time, calcium phosphate should be given, for it is quite certain that it has been drawn on from the blood to assist the work of the magnesium phosphate, hence the deficiency in the lime salt. It is, though, his understanding of the peculiar workings and affinities of the inorganic salts that the biochemist is so completely equipped for the battle against so-called disease. Calcarea sulfurica, calcium sulfate, gypsum or plaster of Paris. Sulfate of lime is used to clean out an accumulation of heteroplasm in the intestines of the tissues, to cause the infiltrated parts to discharge their contents readily and throw off decaying organic matter, so it may not lay dormant or slowly decay, and thus injure the surrounding tissue. A lack of this salt allows suppuration or separation to continue too long. It controls suppuration, a decay of epithelial cells after the infiltrated parts have discharged their contents, and it indicates a lack of this salt. The third stage of all catarrhs, lung troubles, boils, carbuncles. Ooh, that's really old-timey. I don't even know what that is. Ulcers or abscesses need the cell salt. I'm going to start giggling. Hold on. Oh, carbuncles. Okay. While silica hastens the process of suppuration in a normal manner, calcium sulfate closes up the process at the proper time if it is present in the blood in proper quantity. I have been asked why calcium sulfate prevented the process or so promptly closes it up. I answer, simply because a lack of this vitalizer inorganic worker in the organic matter allows the epithelial cells to break down, allows tissues to disintegrate, then the fluids from the blood, the serum, take up the waste and carry it off through some natural or artificial orifice. Other salts, of course, are some of the importance in such conditions, but in true suppurations, calcium sulfate is always the chief remedy, because there can be no suppuration when this worker is present in proper quantity. Exudations, albuminous, fibrinous, or watery matter may take place because of a lack of other salts when the chain of molecules of the lime sulfate is not disturbed. My mouth is not working today. Oh, the success I have had with this salt has been surprising. I kept on hand the 3rd, 6th, 30th, and 200th decimal trituration. Oh, biochemist stuff that I'm not aware of or properly know how to pronounce sometimes. I apologize. phosphoricum. Defeat Satan with a rod of iron, indeed. Iron phosphate colors the blood corpuscles red, carries oxygen to all parts of the body, and thus furnishes the vital force that sustains life. Without a proper balance of iron in the blood, health cannot be maintained. When a deficiency in this cell salt occurs, the circulation is increased, for the blood tries to carry enough oxygen to all the tissues of the body with the limited amount of iron at hand, and in order to do so, must move rapidly, exactly as 7 men must move faster in order to accomplish as much work as could 10, moving at a slower pace. This increased motion being changed to heat by the law of conservation of energy is called fever. Search all the medical writings, from Hippocrates to Koch, and you will not find so good and true a definition of fever as the one offered by the biochemic pathology. It is not the fever or heat alone that causes the condition of not at ease or disease in the patient, but the deficiency of iron molecules and a consequent lack of oxygen. This molecular disturbance soon breaks up continuity of other cell salts. A deficiency in potassium chloride nearly always follows a deficiency in iron unless the missing links be quickly supplied. The cell salt potassium chloride controls the fibrin in circulation, and when the particles of salt fall below the standard, a portion of fibrin, not having workmen to use it, becomes a disturbing element and leaves the vital circulation. If it is thrown off through the lungs, a cough is produced, nature's spasmodic effort to get rid of the heteroplasm. In some instances, the lung tissue becomes so irritated and inflamed that the doctors declare that the cold settled on the lungs and gave their patient pneumonia. If the fibrinous exudation is thrown off through the nasal passages, it is called catarrh. The word catarrh is from the Greek and simply means to drop down. Therefore, there is no help to the pathology of the condition. A lack of ferromolecules, i.e. a proper balance in the blood, is the cause of colds and hots, would be a more appropriate word, and quite as grammatical in its use. When a deficiency of iron occurs, nature or the natural law draws the blood away from the outer parts, the skin, in order to carry on the process of life more perfectly about the heart, lungs, liver, stomach, brain, etc. A lack of blood in the minute blood vessels of the skin allows the pores to close, and waste matter that should escape by this route is turned upon the inner organs. This accumulation, together with certain organic matter thrown out of the blood, caused by deficiencies in certain inorganic salts, forms the exudation of colds, catarrh, pneumonia, pleurisy, etc. For all such conditions, whenever there is inflammation, under whatever name it may be, iron phosphate is the chief remedy. While those who adhere to the old way are trying by careful diagnosis to find out if the patient has typhus or typhoid or malaria or bilious fever, the biochemist is giving iron phosphate because he sees in the symptoms a call for that tissue salt. The name of the ailment is of no consequence. Iron molecules toughen the cellular structure in the circular walls of the blood vessels. Hence, a lack of iron frequently causes a breaking down of the walls of minute blood vessels, minute blood vessels, producing a hemorrhage. Iron phosphate, Iron phosphate is indicated in hemorrhage from any orifice of the body. The alternating remedies, natrium myrrh and kali phosphorus, according to the symptoms. Kali, muraticum. Gemini, this is your cellular salt, and your 3 are on the right-hand side that you need to do as well. Potassium chloride should not be confounded with potassium chlorate or chlorate of potash or potassium, as it is an entirely different salt. The key to a true medical science will be found only when a knowledge is obtained of the true relation of the dissimilar particles, a combination of which forms animal tissue. Fibrin, I'm not sure, is distinguished from albumin and casein by its separation in a solid state, and delicate filaments in any fluid in which it is dissolved shortly after the fluid is taken from the organism. It is clearly shown by biochemistry that without the inorganic salt potassium chloride, no fibrin can be made, as it is further shown that the normal amount of fibrin cannot be held in proper solution in the blood without the proper balance of that cell salt. Fibrin results from the union of certain fibrin plastic substances, albuminoids, but this union does not take place in the absence of chloride of potash molecules. In venous blood, the fibrin amounts to 3 in 1,000 parts. Arterial blood contains less, a lymph a still smaller amount. In inflammatory exudations, we find that fibrin in the serous cavities such as pleura and peritoneum, and on the mucous membrane, as in croup, diphtheria, catarrh, etc. In all inflammatory conditions, iron phosphate should be given in alternation with kali myrrh, for the iron molecules carry oxygen, which becomes deficient when the proper balance is disturbed by the outflow of fibrin. It is quite clear to my mind that fibrin is created or produced by the action of the chloride of potash with the assistance of oxygen on certain albuminoids. The white or gray coating on the tongue, mucous lining, or tonsils is the fibrin that has become non-functional because of the deficiency in potassium chloride and oxygen. We find that the fibrinous exudation also discharges or expectorations of a thick white slime or phlegm from any of the mucous membranes, or in flower-like scaling of the skin. The same material causes the enlargement in all soft swellings. Hard swellings or lumps may be caused by the lime salts and pure albumin or silica. I have been asked to state why kali myrrh relieves the effect of burns. My theory is that the fibrin in the tissues first succumbs to the effects of heat, and the chloride of potash, by its union with the albuminous substances, produces new fibrin and then supplies the deficiency. This is your cellular salt, Kali phosphoricum. You also need, as you see off to your right, Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer as well. Potassium phosphate, phosphate of potash. When the medical profession fully understands the nature and range of the phosphate of potassium, insane asylums will no longer be needed. The gray matter of the brain is controlled entirely by the inorganic cell salt, potassium phosphate. This salt unites with albumin, and by the addition of oxygen, creates nerve fluid, or the gray matter of the brain. Of course, there's a trace of other salts and other organic matter in the nerve fluid, but potassium phosphate is the chief factor and has the power within itself to attract, by its own law of affinity, all things needed to manufacture the elixir of life. Therefore, when nervous systems arise, due to the fact that the nerve fluid has been exhausted from any cause, the phosphate of potassium is the only true remedy, because nothing else can possibly supply the deficiency. The ills arising from too rapidly consuming the gray matter of the brain cannot be overestimated, and if all who are inclined to nervous disorders would carry Kali phosphate with them in tablet form, a large amount of sickness and suffering would be prevented. Kali phos is, to my mind, the most wonderful curative agent ever discovered by man, and the blessings it has already conferred on the race are many. But what shall the harvest be when physicians everywhere fully understand the part this wonderful salt plays in the process of life? It will do as much as can be done through physiology to make a heaven on earth. Let the overworked businessman take it and go home good-tempered. Businessmen. Again, this was 1897, you guys. Let the weary wife, oh my goodness, I forgot about this part. Let the weary wife, nerves unstrung from attending to sick children and entertaining company. Well, you know what? That's true. She's still doing that, and she's also overworked from her job, no doubt. Take it and note how quickly the equilibrium will be restored. And let calm and reason assert her throne. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Oh, my goodness. No provings are required here. We find the potassium salt largely predominates the nerve fluid, and that a deficiency produces well-defined symptoms. The beginning and end of matter is to supply the lacking principle and in molecular form, exactly as nature furnishes it, and vegetables, fruits, and grain to supply deficiencies. This is the only law of cure. I apologize for the laughing. I have the giggles. Kali sulfuricum, Virgo, this is your salt. And please make sure that you look to the right of your screen, and you need those 3 correlating zodiac salts as well. Potassium sulfate, sulfate of potash. The suffocative feeling, I'm sorry, my tongue is really getting twisted, and desire for cool air, so characteristic of Kali sulf and caused by a deficiency of the cell salt, is explained thus. Without a proper amount of oil, the skin cannot carry on its functions. The pores shrivel up, the skin becomes dry, and the symptoms found in the repertory indicating Kali-Sulf appear. In health, the microscope reveals the fact that little jets of steam are constantly escaping from the 7 million pores of the skin. When from any cause these avenues become closed, it may be easily seen that serious disturbances must of necessity occur. You may ask why a lack of proper balance of potassium sulfate molecules should cause a rise in temperature in the afternoon, and which does not subside till about midnight. The reply would be that at such times the molecules of the salt are carriers of oxygen. It is well known that in sleep we breathe more deeply than awake, therefore the blood becomes charged with oxygen during sleep. The patient suffering from a lack of potassium sulfate will lie awake until exhausted, the system all the time calling for the deficient molecules of this salt. About midnight, he falls asleep from exhaustion, and immediately deep respiration commences, which supplies oxygen to the blood and opens the pores. The circulation is at once diminished, so the heat of the body escapes by the natural outlets. After the patient awakens, it requires a certain length of time, through imperfect breathing caused by the deficiency of the salt, to again close the pores and bring on these characteristic symptoms. Very interesting, because it's one of my salts. Very interesting. Magnesia phosphorica. Leo, this is your cellular salt. You'll see your little zodiac image on the left, and you should see 3 zodiac images on the right. Those also you need to take. Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio. Magnesium phosphate, or phosphate of magnesia. Molecules of magnesium phosphate are found chiefly in the white fibers of the nerves and muscles. Nerves and muscles are composed of many strands of fibers of different colors, each one acting as a special telegraph wire, each one having a conductile power or special affinity for certain organic and inorganic principles, and performing their varied functions through the operation of natural law. The white fibers seem to be controlled by the molecular action Magnesium cell salt. When a deficiency in this salt occurs, these white fibers contract and produce a condition called spasms or cramps. Of course, it's simply nature's language saying, I want more magnesium phosphate. We can name the condition anything we wish. Names are of no consequence. Names of a disease are entities in biochemistry. When a deficiency of magnesium phosphate occurs in the muscular tissue of the walls of the stomach, the white fibers draw up, contract, and reduce the cavity of the stomach. Now, in order to meet this condition and prevent a collapse, gas is formed by a natural process, formed the material at hand, and by expansion produces a counterforce. Magnesium phosphate relieves such conditions almost instantaneously. Would such results be possible in the absence of the great law of cure supplying deficiencies? The only exception to this rule of speedy cures by administering this remedy is where the blood is furnished calcium phosphate as a substitute in an effort to supply the deficiency. Calcium phosphate more nearly corresponds to magnesium phosphate than any other salt. Therefore, when magnesium phosphate does not act promptly, calcium phosphate should be given in order that the chain of molecules may be completed in both of the distributed salts. This wonderful curative agent is the true antispasmodic remedy. It has cured cases of chorea, or Saint Vitus's dance, and from 2 to 4 weeks for all heart troubles, so-called caused by distension of the cardiac portion of the stomach and thus interfering with the action of the heart. It is the sovereign remedy. Dr. Borick, one of the leading homeopaths of the Pacific Coast, says it is a magnificent remedy. But the question will arise, how can molecules of certain mineral salts supply a certain weight nerve or muscular fluid? There is certainly a difference between the particles of an inorganic salt and the fluid that controls white fibers. To answer these questions and try to make the matter clear to the minds of everybody, it is the object of these short articles. It is quite evident that the fluid in question is manufactured in the physiology, my goodness, of the body. What more rational explanation than the following? The particles of magnesium phosphate simply contain within themselves the power, the potency, to create this muscle and nerve fluid by uniting with the albumin, using albumin as the basic organic material, then calling to its aid the spirit of life, which is oxygen. Each inorganic salt knows how to make some constituent of the human organism. And the tree bore 12 manner of fruits, and the leaves thereof were for the healing of the nations. Natrum muraticum, Aquarius, this is your salt. And to the right of the screen you should see 3 images of zodiac images. You need those salts as well. Sodium chloride, common salt. With the exception of the phosphate of lime, the human system contains more sodium chloride than any other inorganic salt. The reason for this may be readily understood when we realize that our bodies are about 70% water, which in the absence of sodium chloride would be inert and useless. It is the power that this salt has to use water that renders it of any value to man. The same principle holds good in plants as well as vegetable life. Sodium chloride uses water to build up and carry on functions of life, and also as a vehicle to eliminate waste substances. Any deficiency in this cell salt at once causes a disturbance of the water in the human organism, because it has lost that element which renders it fit to perform its allotted task. In sunstroke, a deficiency in sodium chloride allows the moisture to be drawn from other parts, especially the nape of the neck, and cause a pressure against the base of the brain, producing dangerous and sometimes fatal results. The above-named salt, given in 3 to 6 times concentration, relieves the unpleasant condition called sunstroke surely and quickly. In delirium tremens, the continuity of water is broken up due to a deficiency of sodium chloride molecules, and the symptoms incident to this disease follow. Very severe cases of delirium have been relieved in 1 hour by administering frequent doses of this remedy. The coming physician will wish to know more than the mere fact that a certain agent has curative properties. He will demand to know how and why, and if the remedy is a true one, the how and why can always be explained. I am anxious to make clear to the understanding the modus operandi of the 12 inorganic salts, to show that each one has a special building or creative power. This salt may be compared to a brick mason or a carpenter. The brick mason has the power to build up a brick wall when he is supplied with brick and mortar. So, the carpenter can create a wooden structure when lumber and other material necessary for the work is furnished. The carpenter is the workman or vitalizer of the inert organic material and possesses the creative power to produce a building. So, the inorganic salt possess the creative power to make something out of organic matter, and thus the chemistry of life goes on. Libra, this is your cellular salt, and to the right of the screen, those 3 images, the other zodiac images, you need those as well. Phosphate of soda. Acid, like seeming evil, is all-pervading. It matters not what name is given a condition of the human system. Acidity manifests itself in the unpleasant symptoms. The fluids of the body contain both alkali and acid, but a deficiency in acid never occurs because it is organic and, like albumin, is always present in sufficient quantities when proper food is taken. As it is necessary, absolutely necessary, that a proper balance of lime phosphate molecules be present to work with the albumin and properly distribute it and incorporate it into bone and other tissue. So it is absolutely necessary that a proper amount of the phosphate of soda be present as a worker with acid to combine with it and thus form new compounds. Thus, it will be seen that an excess of acid is a misnomer, and that the true way to put it is a deficiency exists in the phosphate of sodium. And here again comes in the creative power inherent in inorganic salts. Organic matter has no creative power, no more than has a brick. The brick mason, given a supply of brick, possesses the power to create the brick wall. The inorganic mineral salts have the power to create when furnished with the proper materials. But the material is always present. It is the laborers that are scarce in disease. The only trouble that ever arises is a deficiency in workmen. A lack of proper balance of the alkaline cell salt and gastric juice will allow ferments to arise and so retard digestion that the lining quickly becomes involved. An anspissation of bile occurs, and bilious diarrhea or other bilious disorders follow. For such conditions, natrium sulfate must be given also. Although natrium phosphate would have prevented such results. Now, here we have a case where it is as clear as the noonday sun that the bad symptoms are caused by a lack of certain inorganic salts. Yet, in all such conditions, old school doctors have stoutly maintained the patient needed something strong to stir up his liver. Strange that it should be necessary to stir up the liver, because the bile simply lacked sodium phosphate or sodium sulfate. As well say the stomach of a hungry man needed rousing up with something strong. When a man needs food, we give him food. When it can be shown the liver needs a certain cell salt, why not supply it? Why give bichloride of mercury when the cause clear for phosphate of soda? I don't know, Mr. Carey. I don't know. Natrum sulfuricum, sodium sulfate, Glauber's salt, sulfate of soda. Taurus, this is your cellular salt. And the 3 zodiac signs to your right, you need those salts as well, at least those. This inorganic salt is found in the intercellular fluids, and its principal office is to regulate the water in the tissue, blood, and fluids of the body. A deficiency of this salt prevents the elimination of such water from the tissue as is produced by oxidation of organic matter, while sodium chloride properly distributes the water in tissues, as has been shown. Sodium sulfate regulates the amount by having the power to eliminate any excess that may, from any cause, be present. First, decomposition of lactic acid with sodium phosphate leaves a residue of water to be gotten rid of, and sodium sulfate must be present in proper quantity, or a hydrogenoid condition will arise. Second, in hot weather, where water is present, it is held in solution by the heat of the sun in the atmospheric air, and thus enters the blood through the lungs. Those who are weakly, whose digestion is in any way impaired, are then liable to so-called malarial troubles, because the circulation is not able to eliminate the excess of water from the blood because of the lack of proper quantity of sodium sulfate molecules to do the work. To speak from a chemical view, I might say that 1 molecule of sodium sulfate has the power to take up and carry out of the organism 2 molecules of water. Now I wish to make this matter so plain that none may fail to understand. Biochemistry has established the fact that chills and fever, yellow fever, and all ailments incident to hot weather are caused by an excess of water in the blood, and probably in intercellular fluids, and that all such conditions arise from the inability of the digestion and assimilation to furnish sufficient quantity of sodium sulfate to carry off the excess of water breathed into the blood, the lungs. Let us take a case of chills. There is not a medical authority in existence in which a true definition of the phenomena is given. Their so-called explanations are meaningless and glittering generalities. I explain a chill as thus: when the blood becomes overcharged with water, of course, the various tissues of the body must suffer from lack of proper nourishment. This sets up a panic. Now, as the water carriers are not present in sufficient quantities to throw out the excess in the natural way, nature does the next best thing, causes a spasm of the vascular, nervous, and muscular systems, and thus, by violent effort, throws out the excess of water. Hence the profuse perspiration which follows a chill. Where natrium sulfate is not given to supply the workman and thus keep out an excess of water, the chill will reoccur in about 48 hours, simply because that much time is required to again overcharge the blood with water. Anyone who will give natrium sulfate, 3 times concentration, for chills will at once be convinced that malarial conditions are either not caused by microbes from a swamp, or else they are very easily destroyed. One more point. Let the patient go up a mountain until he reaches a cool, dry area, strata, above the point where water is held in solution by heat, and he is immediately cured. Why? Because he gets a large supply of oxygen and thus eliminates the surplus water that caused the trouble. 2 more points. First, the blood never becomes overcharged with water from any amount we may drink, for the absorbents do not take up more water than is needed. Second, the heat of the sun does not take up the slime or decaying foul organic matter from the ponds or swamps. The water in the swamps or stagnant pools, when separated from the organic matter, is pure, and this is what the sun lifts and holds in the air so long as temperature remains high enough. So we find that among the inorganic salt workmen in the human economy, sodium sulfate works with water, keeps bile and pancreatic juice at normal consistency, regulates the supply of water and intercellular fluid, and eliminates the excess of water from the blood when present in proper quantity. Yes, last but not least, Sagittarius, silicea or silica. Not only do you need silica, Sagittarius, but over to the right, I've reminded you that you also need Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces cellular salts as well. Common names are siliceous earth, pure flint, or quartz. Chemical action or function of silica as a worker in the human organism has never been clearly explained. Writers on biochemistry have heretofore been content to state its general action and give it its place in the repertoires according to certain symptoms. It is, as we have been informed, a constitute of common quartz, and found in the hair, nails, skin, periosteum, neurulema, the nerve sheaths, and a trace in the bone tissue. This salt is indicative of all suppurative process until the infiltrated parts have fully discharged the heteroplasm or accumulation of decaying organic matter that may have arrived at a given point during nature's effort to eliminate it from the system. In the first stage of any swelling, iron phosphate or kali myrrh should be given for reasons explained in biochemic pathology, but should these salts fail to abort these processes, silica should at once be given. It's like it's a miracle salt. My theory is that the particles of silica, being sharp-cornered, accumulate under the intelligent operations of nature's law of affinity or attraction, and acts as a lancet, thus cutting a way through the tissue, the skin, etc., for the escape of non-functional organic matter. But in order to carry on with any work, nature must have tools to work with. When silica is present in proper quantities, the process of separation is carried on in a normal manner. When a deficiency of silica occurs, separation is retarded. The greater the deficiency, the greater and more stubborn and painful the swelling, or part at which the matter is attempting to escape, or more correctly speaking, the point at which nature attempts to cast it off. Thus, it will be seen that a lack of silica is the cause of carbuncles, again, that funny word, and not the anthrax bacillus. A deficiency of silica in the connective tissue between the cerebrum and the cerebellum produces a mental condition in which thinking is difficult. But why? Because the connective tissue has become so negative from the lack of silica that it fails to act as a conductor for the gray matter of the brain. By supplying silica in molecular form, the chemical affinity is restored and normal thought again established. And that concludes part 2 of Dr. Carey's book, Materia Medica, Tissue Remedies. I really hope that the video is helpful. I know that it'll help people. I know it was very lengthy. I hope that you enjoyed it. It did take quite a lot of time and energy and effort to compile it all and get it out to you. But I send it in the hopes that it will, I guess, a ray of hope. If you have any of the conditions that you've seen in the video, I really hope that that this is helpful. As always, sending you all lots of love, peace, strength, knowledge, wisdom, clarity of mind. And I say, love yourselves. That means love your temple, love your body, be a perfect workman that has no sin in him, does not miss the mark. And of course, love all others and love all life unconditionally. Subscribe, like, share, help out the YouTube algorithm so more people can benefit. Love you guys. Peace.